Alright, since this gun has moved the worst and has messed up the most, so we can say that our factory zero and that's off. So let's try to turn these screws out. And so far, not horrible. And they're not loose, put it to you that way. Takes a little bit of pressure to so that wasn't quite the problem. So I'm going to back these out and then we'll take a look at the rings. Okay, I got the screws off and we're going to take a look. Nothing unusual on this one. But I don't think these are very precision rings. Now this back one, when we take it off, if you look in there, see if I can, right there where my finger is, there's a line. There's a line inside there in a high spot, like a burr or something. And if you look down on the scope, there's a line on the scope where it dragged. And you can see where it moved all that way. So I'm daring to say that these rings are not very precision. Okay, so, and if we look down in there, you can see the kind of discoloration, and you can see different marks where it's dragged and moved. The rings aren't very true. So I'm going to try to look at this and see. Now it looks like it's going to be lapping time, which that's a barrel of laughs. Let me assess this a little more, but from right what I can tell, there's a high spot and a burr. It dragged on the scope, left a mark on the scope, and there's marks inside these rings where the scope, the recoil has been shoving the scope around. So these rings are really not holding that scope other than on a couple high points. It's not clamping it solidly. That's why it moved. All right. After having lunch and doing a preliminary look at this, I don't know. In my honest opinion, like I said, I'm not an expert on scopes. Now, a lot of these fellows are buying a set of rings and mounts that are about half the cost of this gun, and scopes that they can run anywhere from the price of one of these guns and up higher. And people that are into that long range shooting and whatever. But looking at this, I seen the scope, seen where it was dragging on a high spot on this back ring, and actually marred the scope, scratched all the way down the line. The one set of scopes in that I do have experience with are the sub $75 Chinese things. A lot of ARs, I buy dot sights and that, I buy the discount ones, and they're not expensive. And I did buy a few AR scopes for guns I built and sold, and I didn't want to put a lot of money into them. And I bought some from China, much like that scope I put on the compass. Well, after taking this apart and looking at the rings and the mounts, I have a very bad suspicion that this is not a US made item. Okay, first thing is, them screws that go into the rings are metric. I measured the little wrench, and a metric wrench fits in there. So my Wheeler scope system, the torque wrench, I don't have a hex head to torque them. So, doesn't look good. And when I put the alignment bars in, which I bought this set, I bought it a while back. When I put the alignment bars in, it looks like, comparison to the back to the upper, the front one, the point is up high and off to the left. It's not a perfect alignment. So these rings are not aligned. Okay, and I don't believe, now we're looking at just tearing it right off. Now I started it, might as well finish it. Tearing this all down, remounting the bases and Loctiting them in. Getting the rings on there and then trying to align them somewhat. But something tells me, because I did this before, I'm going to have to lap the hell out of these rings. And little by little, and it's going to take a while, I can lap these rings down where I get about 80% contact. And then when I torque down these screws and Loctite everything in, that scope will be dead on. There's a lot of work, a lot of trouble. And you know, the whole idea is to get a gun right off the shelf that's inexpensive and usable. And that's why everyone complains about these scopes and removes them. Okay? I can probably, and see, these things are almost, on a 1-inch alignment things, they're almost clamped flush. So when I start honing that out, or, you know, getting it trued up, that's going to be close. I may have to machine a few thousandths off of the ledges of the ring. But now this has turned into a different type of project. The one thing, once I started firing these guns, I found that the scopes move, and now I know why. They're very, very low quality rings, and it kind of, being metric, it kind of leads me to question the origin of these scopes. Now Remington says they're Bushnell or somebody, but I don't know. And yes, U.S. manufacturers do use metric parts, so. But this scope is really an awful lot like that $30 scope I bought. So I'm going to let this go for now. I got some other things to do. I'll do an update on this. And there's like hours and hours of work to get this scope right on there again. And I'll probably do an updated video because I don't know if I'm going to do it tomorrow or what. But now that I got it off and got into this, the project's going to take a lot of time to get it right and straight. But I'll take you through it and see how it goes.